Then there was James William, Thomas Brandon, William Hill, Lacey, Roebuck, Hawthorne, Major Samuel Hammond. So 15 key South Carolina officers were in North Carolina already because of Fishing Creek and Musgrove's Mill. How many men they had with them is another story. And I can't nail all that down. So later historians essentially lump them all together, those 15 South Carolinian officers, and say they were South Carolinian refugees, and there's nothing else to say about it, but we know that they had true regiments. So there are the names of all of the detachments, all of the regiments, and where they came from. So now you see, oh, this is a high test. This is a different version of how to show deployments and routes. This is what they call a water diagram used in a lot of industries. But essentially, these guys linked up here, these guys joined here, they went to these locations, and they're marching on their way. Two sources say that Colonel Cleveland and Winston went this route to Defiance and Greider's Force and met up here, and another source said they met up here. They went to Gilbertown, they probably camped here, and they went on down to the Cowpens. So for James Williams, he was in Hillsborough on these dates, went to Castle Courthouse, to Guilford Courthouse in Salisbury for over a week. Brandon joins him here at Tuckasegee Ford. Lacey and Hill meet up with him. Robert Anderson meets up at Beatty's Ford. William Graham meets up at Beatty's Ford. And then Chronicle had been harassing the heck out of British in Charlotte. Finally got word, get your butt over here. He met up here. And most people say that Candler didn't arrive until after Cowpens. I've read other sources that says Candler arrived a little earlier. But the bottom line is, as you can see, there's 28 units that convened at Cowpens and went on to Kings Mountain. That's how it worked out. This is a slightly different blow up. I tried to do it all, I found out I couldn't, but at least you get to see where the key fords are. So there's these different fords. There's the Broad River. This is the Catawba River. There are roads all throughout here, and they use roads, but not always. Finally, for the deployment, this is the most likely deployment. As you see, Cleveland had over 100 companies in this order that they marched. Shelby had these, Sevier, and I don't know whether these were flipped because I've got an equal number of one that says he was here and he was here. Bottom line though is that this is how they were essentially deployed around Kings Mountain, coming in here. This is where they staged. This is a ravine that did have a clearing. They marched around this way. There is a creek here, and they marched this way, this way. Now this is not true. There's not clearings here. This is just so we can get the names on it. But they marched around here, and this is how they were deployed, and that's every unit where they were, the most likely scenario. So taking that to the ultimate, you see regiment by regiment. This is Colonel William Campbell. Here's his birth date, death date. One of his famous sayings is route. These are the sources for every officer, loss, or a contentious statement, or from Nothing But Blood and Sorrow from Patrick O'Kelly. A couple of things to note. Every check mark means that they're in the list that I give you in Excel, and they've been double checked. Some men supported. Here are the documented numbers: 58 officers, 198 privates, 4 NCOs, for a total of 160. It averages out 5 men per company. My guess is the probable number is more like 160. So these are documented. These are my numbers guesstimate. And then there's other little notes along here. For example, many say he had over 200 men at the battle. A couple of other notes. This guy's from Augusta County, Montgomery County. He was from Rowan County, etc. So that's for Washington County. You see Benjamin Cleveland had 20 companies. They're all the relevant same information. This is one of the men I can't reconnect. Herndon was with the infantry, but there was a Joseph Hardin that I found on several occasions, but the past 2 weeks I couldn't dig it back out. That's one of the things I got. Going through it real quickly, Joseph Winston. Oh, back up. there's information on this man as well. So he was on the House of Commons and in the Senate in the colonial time. He was this. He wasn't the head of Surrey County. Colonel Martin Armstrong was. He was guarding the homes from front. Let's see here. There's Major Joseph McDowell. He had 21 companies. There's Andrew Hampton that a lot of folks don't even know about. He had 14 companies. Hambright. Most people say that Chronicle led the Lincoln County men, but the truth of the matter was that Hambright was of German descent. He could barely speak English. He didn't think that the men could understand him when he gave orders, so he made an agreement with William Chronicle. You relay my orders for me. So that's why a lot of folks said Chronicle led the Lincoln County men. But actually, Chronicle did not. And Chronicle was killed, of course. You see all the field officers going through Shelby for Sullivan County. He has a governor. John Sevier was a lieutenant colonel. He was also a governor. He had the most number of men there. He had 26 companies under him. Brandon had 7. And you'll see over here, these were detached to go support whomever. For example, you see little things like this is the most common name. There's another name. These guys all said they were under Cleveland. But other accounts said they were directly under Williams. So leave some of these to go. There's Granville. There's Williams and his actual regiment that he had under him. But then again, I mentioned before, these guys were under him, so they get added to him. These are called detachments. We all know that he was killed or wounded. This guy was with him since Musgrove's Mill, so he followed him all the way to Hillsborough. Brandon brought these men. A lot of folks said they were the first Spartan, but John Thomas Jr. was not there. These guys were detached and working under Brandon. Then Roebuck, Spartan area. Samuel Watson from New Acquisition. Robert Anderson from the Upper 96 was there. Samuel Hammond. A lot of folks seem to think that he had a company at the Battle of Kings Mountain. I found nothing that substantiates it. He was most likely on the staff of James Williams, but he could have led a company. I just don't find anything. As you see, he led a hell of a life after the Revolution. Edward Lacey, Fairfield, Richard Wynn was with Sumter in Hillsborough, but these 3 captains came under Lacey. Kansas District, Taylor was guarding the home front. Hawthorne, as we mentioned before, Candler from Georgia, and you end up with a total with a big old spreadsheet that says there are 53 field officers, 342 company officers, 23 NCOs, 707 private guard. All of this has been documented into the correct regiment. And my guess is these adders to get us up to about 1,600. And so finally, I'm going to end after this. It says, dang, we're running over 5 minutes already. All right, every captain by alphabetical order. This is double check means it's been checked with the spreadsheet. If there's no name out here or number, then the guys under him are the ones that gave him his recognition. So you see this guy, 5 men claim they served under him. Some sources say that this lieutenant was actually a captain. But there's only 2 guys that served under him. As you see over here, I start finding other notes. We've proven they're mounted. We've proven they're light horse. We've proven they're light horse. I got the name from Moss, but Moss said he served under so-and-so, but was not provided rank. So there's a lot of little notes. Every man, as you can see, some got 10, some have 0. This is every captain in alphabetical order as who was there, and it's mostly so you can see who their peers were, who their neighbors were, things like that. Oh, that was a good one. How many people documented under this guy? So, for example, some guys say he was a lieutenant, but these guys say he was a colonel. A captain. So I don't say definitively he was a captain, but I don't count him twice. You don't count him once. There's all that, getting through HIJKLP, and you start finding at the end that there are a few men that you just said, I was under Campbell, but I didn't tell McCaffrey. 39 for Campbell, 34 for Benjamin Cleveland, 10 for Joseph Winston, 6 for McDowell, this number 11 for Hampton. Now, for Lincoln County, I got a lot of information from books that just said they were there, so that's the sources. There's a total of 90. For here, it's 15, 19, 12, boom, boom, boom. On the loyalist side, you got the same stuff, and then you got backup data out the wazoo. All that's on your CD-ROM. I hope you enjoy reading all of it. It will be a test sometime. So, we probably won't score it. So, if there's nothing else, time for questions. We might have. Sorry, George, I took 5 minutes extra. Go to your archives. They are awesome. They got a lot of data.
That's a wonderful collection of information and a great resource, and we thank you for that. With regard to 2 points that you made, I have some free handouts at my display that relate to the Chronicle marker. That is the second oldest Revolutionary War marker in the country, and it's here in South Carolina at Teets Mountain. So please stop by and get that. And the other thing is, you mentioned the work that John Robertson and Bill Anderson have been doing. I've been working with them, and how I get left out of that, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
That's right. I have my write-up back here about the route of the South Carolina militia and how they came to Kings Mountain. So those of you that want a narrative account, please come to my display. Free copies, free copies, free copies.
Excellent. It is always good to get another set of eyes on this stuff. So as you all know, errors abound in the universe. I make errors. You will probably find some in here. I don't mind if you hit me with errors. If you send me an email telling me that you found so-and-so and so-and-so, I will address it. Now, I have anti-spam software on my server. So a lot of times, people come to me and complain, I've sent you emails and they bounce. Oh my God, I have been working with my software vendor to try to figure out how to solve this. He said, next time they bounce, have the people send you the reply that says it bounced. So please, if you try to send me an email and it bounces, print it out. I know it's a pain, it's a 49-cent stamp, send it to me and I'll add it to the whitelist. And then I'll have something to send to my vendor to say, help me fix this problem. Because a lot of people are getting kicked out, they shouldn't be. Questions? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
John.
So what's your bottom line number or range for the loyalist side?
The loyalist side, my bottom line number is 1125. That's what I think was there. And that comes from more sources than anything else. There were 125 provincials. And I've got all of them identified in there. It comes up to be 117. I figure I missed 8. So I figured 125 provincials, and there were 1,000 roughly loyalists. And they were mostly from South Carolina. North Carolina provided some, and it's all listed by regiment on the loyalist side, so you see it in there. And it says, Bobby Moss and everybody else could only find 6 names, but I figure there's probably 40. And so it's little, you'll see that on each record. But I've got the correct loyalist regiment name too. So classic example is Patrick Ferguson called his group the American Volunteers, but that was just his own personal name he gave it. They were actually detachments from the King's American Regiment. There were 5 regiments that they were detached from. And so I give you that information too, so you know where they came from. As far as the loyalist militia names, each militia in South Carolina and North Carolina had different names. 2 names, 3 names, 4 names. So I give you the most prominent one. Anything else? Yes, sir.
They had roughly comparable troops. They had the high ground. Why did they lose?
My opinion is overwhelming numbers. I think that the Patriots brought more than 1,600 men. versus what everybody says was around 900. I think secondly, firing downhill, you have the propensity to overshoot. And so even though they had the higher ground, everything I read on anybody that's got the higher ground, their shots go high. And you would think gravity would make it drop, but no, they end up shooting high. So that's the only two things that I can come up with. There might be others. All right, folks, time for lunch. Jordan's probably going right now.
Real good. It's always, you know, something for the healthy heart, and then it's those that don't care like me.
December 30th,
Does anybody else have any